Oh my god, what am I doing? Hey guys, thank you for joining me today on Just Thinking Out Loud. My name is Desiree. A few people asked me to talk about this topic. I actually wasn't that interested in making a video on it. It was about a Black student union at Cornell who were made demands to their administration. One of them including that the admissions department focused on recruiting more native Black Americans because there were too many African and Caribbean immigrants that were included as part of the Black population and being recruited. So this is a topic that I think that I am pretty well versed in because I am a foreigner and I am a Caribbean immigrant and I came to the United States through college. I did not attend an Ivy League institution, but I do know at least one person, sometimes multiple, who have attended every single one of the Ivy League institutions in the United States. And I think I could give some insight on the topic. First of all, the most interesting thing to me about this situation is that these students decided to capitalize on this incident. There was somebody in a fraternity that called someone the N-word, and then they used this in order to make a list of demands to the administrations that is basically them trying to get competitive advantage over others. And the one thing that I guess I really wanted to say about this whole thing is that race is not a useful way to define categories of people. It is only used for the utility of competing with others. So once this is no longer useful, as it is right now, because they're seeing that they're not getting what they want, because they're seeing that other people are taking that same title, that being the Black minority status, and being accepted into these universities. I don't think really through affirmative action, but I don't really know what goes on in these people's admissions areas. Once that is no longer happening, they don't have that artificial bond anymore, and it's completely artificial, by the way. When I came to this country, everybody is foreign to me. That is, everybody has a different culture from me, that is including Black Americans. And it's very weird that people just think that you automatically share similarities to them just because of the skin color. The only thing I would say is that there's some like shared music, maybe, but that's nothing. It's very, very minor. So once it's not useful anymore in order to get scarce resources, the whole thing just falls apart. That's how I feel about any identity politics, by the way. That includes all the white people who are banding together right now. I think that it's very artificial and superficial, and once they don't have that thing to compete for with each other, that whole thing is going to fall apart. Identity politics ignores things like class, people being urban or rural, people actually sharing culture. Like, I have more in common with an Indian Jamaican than a Black American. Like, everything more in common because we actually grew up in the same culture. So their demands didn't even relate to the initial issue. They didn't make it about, I don't know what they would make it about, like punishment for the guy, but they made it about making it easier for them to win in getting their education, which is not a good win, by the way, because after you get your education, you're still going to have to compete with other people in the marketplace, and you don't need an education to do that. You need smarts. You honestly just need to be smart. So they're asking for the rules to be changed. As we can see, based on their demands, diversity is arbitrary. It was once just about Black people versus, I guess, every other colored people, but now they want to divide it even further, and this is all about getting resources. That's it. It's not all of this fighting for against injustice, etc. That's not what it is. And I know maybe they don't even realize it themselves, but we are species here and creatures trying to reproduce and get the best for ourselves and our offspring. And that is why we do the things that we do. I personally think that these students need to toughen up. Someone said the N-word should not have that much power over you. And the funny thing always is that they never show the other side. They don't even see it. It's like they don't even see it, and it's so obvious to me. And I know it goes the other way too, but nobody talks about it. It's like, not from what I see, nobody really talks about it except, I guess, on the internet. Another thing that I hear a lot of people bring up when they talk about immigrants coming to this country is that they're always very privileged already from their home country. And I can't speak for other countries, but I can speak for my country and the school that I went to. And I'm not saying this in any way to boast, but the school I went to was basically the top school in the country in terms of grades, and they brought people from all over the island. And there were a lot of people there who did have a lot of money, but there were also a lot of people who did not. The only thing that you had to do in order to get into that school was to have good grades and be able to make that drive, because you are sourced from all over the island, and it could be as much as a 3-4 hour drive to get to school. So I knew some people who lived in Ocho Rios and would come to school. The other thing too is that in Jamaica, everybody wears school uniforms. So at least in the beginning, it is not very obvious who has money and who doesn't. It's a very different social dynamic, I think, from the United States in terms of school. You know, like I would see people talk about people having cliques and stuff. That kind of stuff doesn't really happen in Jamaica. Everybody's kind of friendly with everybody else, even though you may have your preferred friends and you have your groups. It doesn't really divide like that. There was occasionally bullying in school, but it was very rare, I would say. The school system in Jamaica is completely different from here. It's very strict, and people have manners and brought up, and it's very different. But I just want to point out that it's not true that you're automatically privileged. Maybe in terms of education, but that's something that you have to earn. And people would say that it's because you have money, but I have a direct example, which I've brought up before, of my mother getting access to certain things because she was smart. They do look for that kind of talent in the country. It's just not true. Also, that it's not always people from the capital that come abroad. There are people from rural areas in Jamaica who also end up coming to the country. It really is about your grades, not just about being privileged. And Jamaica has its own class divisions, but I can tell you that in my school you could find everybody in there. So I have this interesting story that's kind of personal that I think might highlight how people who are not from here really see the world differently in terms of race. So I struggled to finish college financially pretty much the entire time, but towards the end I was a double major, so I had a biology and a studio arts degree. By the way, if you haven't already done so, you should check out my art links in the description. Towards the end of my college years, I got into a verbal altercation with the head of the financial aid department because they did not want to fund the rest of my time in order for me to finish getting the studio arts part of my double major. And I was explicitly told that I should be grateful to have a biology degree and that I did not need a studio arts degree. And I got so pissed off. I only came to this country because I could study more than one thing. I had to plan out my time in order to finish on time and to get the requirements for both of those majors. So that was something that I had been working towards, and I had actually finished somewhere early because I was always taking extra classes. So who was this lady to try and tell me what to do? I still feel like passionate about this. Like, I had to stand there and yell at her because she was being rude and she was trying to tell me how to live my life, and that is not your business, especially when I followed your rules. So I'm not a very quiet person, and I brought this to the attention of many people. In the end, she was told that she did not have the right to make that decision. She actually told me that I am the head of the financial aid department, that I will tell you what's going to happen, and I said no. So you can kind of get what kind of personality I have, because I think that a lot of people would have just sat down and taken that, and that's really not me. And also, I was in the right. So what happened was that there was a lady who is a very nice lady, if she ever watches this, and she was the head of the, like, I forget what it's called, LGBT, diversity, minority, something. I actually enjoyed going to the school that I went to, and I liked a lot of the people I met there, even though I realized that no, I really don't have their politics. She was saying that it was probably because I was black that this lady was treating me this way, even though I just didn't really see that. And then she proceeded to try and tell me how, I don't know, just how white people are in this country. And I remember her making a statement to me. She said that I seem to be one of the black people that white people tend to like, or I get along with them. And honestly, at this time, all of this was just flying over my head. Like, I really never started thinking about all of this stuff until coming here to the city, and I actually started my channel not long after that. So a lot of the things I talk about is me exploring new topics to me. So she said that to me, and she was mixed. I think her father was black and her mother was white. I don't know her story. I don't really want to share her story either, but I just really want to give some insight here on just how I didn't see that at all in that interaction. I saw power dynamic. Also, in the end, I finished school because I had people help me, mostly because I had good grades and my grades got me through. But the people who ended up helping me were also white people. I even spoke to the president of the college about this. I don't know if he remembers me, but I went and I had this big discussion with him, and I said, you know, I think it was unfair that I even had to go through this. And I remember him telling me that sometimes you have to fight for certain things in life. And again, race is not on my mind during these conversations. So I think that for somebody else, like if they were black and in this country and had gone through that kind of experience, they would have automatically assumed that this lady was being racist, even though she worked in a department where all the other ladies were super duper nice to me. So they would have experienced that very differently and probably taken it as a confirmation that people were trying to hold them back due to their skin color. I think that there was more going on there. I also thought that at the moment, at least, she was very arrogant. And when I was talking to the president, he was saying that, you know, she could have been stressed and whatever. And in the end, everybody else sort of picked up for me and she lost. But if I hadn't been the kind of person that I am to fight, I guess, and even to talk back to her, I actually think she was surprised when that argument happened. Like, it turned into a yelling match and she was basically trying to dominate me, actually, whether or not she realized it. And I'm not taking any of that crap. I still don't think it has to do with race. I think it was more of a business trying to save money kind of thing. But basically, I told her, don't ramp with me, you know. And all the people who supported me, you know, they made her get that message. I don't think that any of that had to do with race, even learning what I have now, being in the country longer. And I know they don't want my advice, but I think that you should stop just looking for hurt in all of these places and stop having people have so much power over you just because they said a word to you, and just wallowing in this victimhood and complaining. Like, you have to be productive. Like, that is not productive. Like, even if you are experiencing things and people are discriminating against you or trying to keep you back, you need to just do what you need to do. That's what you're here for. And I'm not religious, but I realize that this influences me. Like, I don't think that that my destiny lies in the hands of another person. That's a terrible way to live life. So forget what other people are doing and just do what you are here to do, or do your best making that happen, even though you might not end up in the place where you really want it to be. I think that the victimhood mentality is soul destroying personally, and you cannot live your life that way. One more thing I wanted to say, that I think other Caribbean communities do have similar issues in terms of the ones that a lot of people talk about when they talk about the Black American community. However, they don't complain in the same way, and they don't outsource and externalize their problems. And I think that's a pretty major difference. I think that's due to a different history and culture and just a different approach to life. Almost. There were a couple of things they mentioned, like they were talking about how people say they self-segregate, and I think that's true. From what I saw, I think that they did self-segregate, and they say that it's in defense, but I think they were on the offensive. But I think in their head, it's in self-defense, and it's true. I totally don't understand the dynamic and the history, and I don't think I need to. I do think I can say, though, as someone that shares that skin color that they claim is always holding them back, that that's not the only thing that's going on. They were even trying to distinguish between Black Americans and foreign Blacks, because foreign Blacks haven't experienced white supremacy in this country, even though they're always going on about how if you have black skin, X, Y, and Z happens to you and you're automatically a victim and afforded victim status. But now, again, because they're not getting what they want, because this is really about advantage in an underhanded way, instead of actually trying to get the skills that they need to compete, they're trying to get it through claiming injustice. As for who gets to do what, a university or college is an institution of higher learning, and you should get in based on meritocracy and how good you fit in with the college's values. Here is something that they said that I wholly disagree with. We demand that all students, undergraduates and graduates, to have appropriate, ongoing, and mandatory coursework that deals with issues of identity, such as race, class, religion, ability status, sexual or romantic orientation, gender, citizenship status, etc. We want this coursework to be explicitly focused on systems of power and privilege in the United States, and centering the voices of oppressed people, assembled by professional diversity consultants and student leaders. Every dean of every college should implement this requirement and hire faculty to teach this work who are well equipped to do so. Faculty who are well equipped to do so. All this means is that they want to indoctrinate you and tell you what to think based on their worldview, and they pick the people who get to do it. this is just garbage. This stuff is just, this is garbage. This is absolute garbage. I finished talking. These students decided to capitalize. Capitalize, is that a word? Capitalize